And welcome to the Cook County Bar Association's Live on CAN TV. I am your host for this evening's show. My name is Attorney Mika Thompson, and to my right and your left is my esteemed colleague, Attorney Lewis Powell III of the law offices of Lewis Powell. And he is here today to talk to you about the fair housing laws pursuant to the Fair Housing Act of 1968. Today's show is being sponsored by the Cook County Bar Association, and it is the oldest association of African American lawyers and judges in the United States. And we take this time every Wednesday at 6 p.m. to bring you information regarding legal issues of importance to the Chicagoland metropolitan area and the United States as a whole. If you ever need an attorney, or if any issue that we discuss on the show has some specific relevance to you and you would like more information, please contact the Cook County Bar Association by going to its website at www.cookcountybar.org. And the website is shown here. You just go to Programs and Services and then scroll down to Lawyer Referral. And then the web page will change and you can scroll down and there are a list of attorneys and their specific area of practice, and you can contact these attorneys by phone and have a private conversation regarding the issue of interest to you. You can also contact the Cook County Bar by phone at 312-630-1157. And they also will be able to refer you an attorney. Now, if you have any questions, please contact us at the number that appears at the bottom of your screen, 312-738-1060. Remember, we're talking about the fair housing laws pursuant to the Fair Housing Act of 1968. Okay, and we're going to begin. Attorney Powell, would you take a moment and introduce yourself to the audience? I've already told them that you are a very well learned and practiced attorney in the city of Chicago, and you're also a professor here, right? Working in real estate law, correct?
Right. Well, Mecca, first of all, you're too kind, but I'll take it. I've been blessed to have taught at the John Marshall Law School for actually over 21 years, actually, in the area of fair housing law, and actually working at the clinic as well. But fair housing is a topic that is very dear to me, very important. And fair housing, is as a generic term, is really encompassing making it illegal to discriminate against someone on the basis of their race, religion, sex, disability. We don't exact word say handicap, but disability, and familiar status.
Okay. And so, audience, we are, please call in because we have a very qualified individual who has a long history in the Chicagoland area, practicing in this area, and he's also a professor who teaches real estate law. So if you have any questions about the Fair Housing Act, please contact us at the number at your screen, 312-738-1060. And getting back to the topic at hand, could you give us a little background regarding the Fair Housing Law and how it came to be? Because is it a product of the Civil Rights Movement?
You know, that's my opinion. To me, Mecca, fair housing is a subset of the civil rights movement. To me, everyone has different interpretations in terms of when the when the civil rights movement took off. In my interpretation, in my opinion, the civil rights took off with the murder of Emmett Till.
Right. Okay.
Okay. Emmett Till was, I believe, my recollection was Emmett Till was murdered, I believe, in 1955.
Okay.
Okay. I was born in 1957.
Okay.
When I was in grammar school, our teacher were talking about it as if it happened yesterday. And since it was early 60s, that memory was fresh in everyone's mind. I'm sure most of our listeners know of the tragic murder of Emmett Till.
Mm-hmm.
And then Emmett Till's mother made a very historical decision when she decided to have an open casket.
Right.
And what that led to, people saw the brutality of how that young man from the city of Chicago, who was visiting his relatives in the state of Mississippi, was brutally murdered for allegedly whistling at a white woman. And this brought attention to the world, not just the nation, but the world, the brutal aspect of how black people are being treated, lynching, so forth and so on. But this took it to another level. And Mecca, you use that, you take that, and then you go into the 60s. In the 60s, Mecca, in my opinion, you had a different type of black man. A black man that was very radical.
Okay.
You had individuals like H. Rap Brown, who said, America, if you don't turn around, we're going to burn you down.
Okay.
You had individuals like Stokely Carmichael.
Right.
Huey Newton, Bobby Steele, Elvis Cleaver.
And these are the Black Panthers.
Black Panthers.
Okay.
Malcolm X. You had a struggle in the African American community in terms of nonviolence versus any means necessary.
Right. And these are individuals that were very, very vocal in their objections to segregation, as well as, like you said, the brutality that was going on in states across the country as far as their treatment of African American citizens.
Absolutely, and you have sort of like a building up. You had Dr. King.
Right.
A lot of people have forgotten Dr. King came here in the early 60s.
Right.
Not too far, because we were on the west side. The west side is the best side.
Right.
Not too far from this location. Him and his lovely wife, Coretta Scott King, briefly resided in the North Lawndale area. Why? To draw attention to absentee landlords, slum landlords, so forth and so on. Dr. King had a hard time here. Dr. King's his group, they felt that if they could crack the city of Chicago in terms of segregation, prejudice, so forth and so on, that they could really use that as a jumping point for the United States. Well, Dr. King did a lot of good things, but Dr. King had a hard time because he dealt with the original Mayor Daley.
Right.
And Dr. King had a hard time here, but he still was able to get past what we want to say a Fair Housing Act. It might have been watered down, but Dr. King had the right intentions.
Right.
So, why am I saying that? We had the murder of Emmett Till.
Right.
We had people like Huey Newton, Bobby Steele, Elvis Cleaver, Malcolm X. And you had people that were saying, well, look, if you slap me, I'm going to slap you back twice. Not just once, but twice, maybe 3 times.
Right.
And
And so that's putting pressure on your
pressure.
political leadership, because those individuals were advocating violence.
Absolutely.
And so your whole peace in your community was, at risk, right?
Now, we're not going to say they were advocating violence. I think a better way to put it is advocating self-defense.
Self-defense.
Now, we have Dr. King, my fraternity brother. Dr. King was advocating nonviolence.
Nonviolence.
And then, lo and behold, what happens? Dr. King was assassinated. And this is leading up to the Fair Housing Act. Dr. King was assassinated, I believe, April 4th or April 5th, 1968. Forgive me if I'm off a day or two.
Right.
However, the importance of Dr. King sacrificing his life, was toward the end of his life, Dr. King was talking about Vietnam.
Right.
Dr. King was not just talking about civil rights, Mecca. He was talking about civil rights. Dr. King was moving more towards economic development toward the end of his life, which may have gotten him killed.
Right.
Because you remember.
Now you're talking about the money.
Right.
And how it's being, the tax money, public services are being distributed between different citizens.
Absolutely. That might have got him killed.
Right.
And while he was in Memphis, not on the civil rights demonstration, Mecca, he was there supporting the sanitary workers of Memphis, who for the most part were African Americans protesting against low wages and unsanitary conditions. Now, the point in terms of the 1968 Fair Housing Act. The 1968 Fair Housing Act was passed roughly within a week of Dr. King being assassinated. Why? Well, Mecca, you're probably too young to remember, but I remember as a young boy, the city of Chicago, along with this nation, went up to flames.
Yes.
And it's my mentor,
right.
F. Willis Caruso, who's probably litigated more fair housing cases than anybody, as he told me the powers that be realized they had to do something.
Right.
Because this nation was going up in flames. You had the disconnect between the average person and the government. You had the internal forces. Back in the 60s, Mecca, all civil rights organizations were infiltrated by informants. You had the tension of the Vietnam War. You had the tension of communism. During that day, the 60s, communism was a threat. So as we say back in the day, you had the revolution would not be televised.
Right.
So you had all of those different factors, and then when a man of peace is brutally murdered, the nation goes up, and as a result of that, the powers that be came up with the Fair Housing Act. Now we know it's another seminar talking about our state budget. That's not for this show.
Right.
Oh, but we do know it is very hard to get anything passed, federally or state. But this 1968 Act passed immediately.
In Congress.
In Congress,
Okay.
passed. And encompassed race, religion, sex, so forth, sex, religion. And in 1988, it was amended to entail disabled, what they call it handicap, but I don't like to use that, disabled,
right.
and familiar status. And what is familiar status, Mecca? Familiar status is the composition of your family.
Okay.
Landlords are notorious of being hard on single women. Why? Because they had the misconception that there's a woman in the house with no man, that the children may be running wild.
Okay.
So landlords are hard on women.
And to the good, when you mean they're hard, they're not willing to rent.
Absolutely. Let's make
rent.
it plain.
We're talking
They're-
about in a rental.
Right. They're making it very hard for women, with single family women with children, to rent, discouraging them, and sometimes outright just not renting to them. So again, the point I'm trying to make is that fair housing is a direct correlation of the civil rights movement because of the different tensions in the community in terms of violence versus nonviolence,
Violence, yeah.
person being murdered, and as a result of Dr. King sacrificing his life, you have this Fair Housing Act, which encompasses a lot.
Now and then it wasn't. It was a series of murders, wasn't it? JFK, Malcolm X, and Martin Luther King.
Right. If you want to go in order, it was Malcolm X, then Dr. King, and then Bobby Kennedy. We're not talking about J.F. Kennedy was killed before all of them, really. John F. Kennedy, the president, was killed actually before Malcolm X. But the point we're trying to make, is that all of this going on led to this Fair Housing Act.
This Fair Housing Act. Interesting. And like you said, the tensions between these popular leaders, you're saying that also contributed to the impetus of this act.
Absolutely.
The legislation, the leadership then felt like they needed to do something.
And something soon.
Something soon. Okay, and this was the something. Okay, so what is the Fair Housing Act according to the law?
This is the Reader's Digest version. Okay, because we want to make sure that the audience gets a teaser, but enough to make them want to know more.
Okay.
Fair housing, we have a couple of general concepts. One, you cannot deny rental or selling housing because of somebody's race, religion, sex, so forth and so on.
Now, does it include the sexual orientation?
Yes, to a certain extent. Because depending upon what state you're in, sexual orientation terms are saying, I'm not selling to you because of your sexual orientation, that's illegal. Okay, because you have different venues. You have the federal court.
Okay.
You have the state court.
Right.
You have the county court.
Okay.
And to a certain extent, you may have subset in terms of the state court as well.
Okay.
Because in the state of Illinois, we have the Illinois Department of Regulation, HDR, as we refer to, IDHR, which is separate from the Cook County.
Right.
So it's possible to be sued in the federal court.
Right.
It's possible to be sued in Illinois State Agency.
Okay.
It's possible to be sued in Cook County State Agency, Cook County Agency, excuse me. And it's possible to be sued in the regular Cook County State Court.
Wow. So all of these have some jurisdiction to
Right.
Refer to
Right.
and enforce, rather.
Right, and to a certain extent, there's a lot of overlapping.
Gotcha.
A lot of overlapping.
Okay.
But for the honesty, what you have to recognize is that no one can, just because you're African American, Hispanic, so forth and so on, no one can refuse to rent to you on the basis of your race, religion, or sex.
Now, is this only in the context of rental housing?
Both sale and rental.
Okay.
Both sale and rental. Let's hit a couple of quick concepts for our audience.
Okay.
Now, in the city, people have a tendency, Mecca, of wanting to live by people that look like them.
Yes, that's true.
Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. What fair housing is, that you had the opportunity to live where you want to. Now, if you want to live in an area that's all African American, if that's your choice, fine. Now, ladies and gentlemen, those of you who've been around a minute, you know that the west side of Chicago wasn't always African American.
No, it was not.
It was not. It was primarily Jewish and Lithuanian, to the best of my knowledge.
Right.
Okay,
That's true.
you look at Douglas Boulevard. There's a reason why you see those nice Jewish synagogues on Douglas Avenue. And those of you who live on the west side, you know what I'm talking about. Those are former Jewish synagogues. Why? Because the north side of the line, the west side of Chicago, predominantly the North Lawndale area, was primarily Jewish.
Okay.
Inglewood at one time, people know, was non-African American. In other words, white. Let's take another example. Roseland. I'm very familiar with Roseland. The area I grew up, for all intents and purposes, was always African American.
Okay.
But as a youngster, I could see Roseland changing. Okay. I'm old enough to remember when the Dan Ryan was built.
Okay.
I'm old enough to clearly remember when the Dan Ryan went past 95th Street. Did you know that,
Wow, no.
Okay.
Right. Okay.
So
okay.
as a youngster, Dan Ryan was sort of like the dividing line between my neighborhood, which for all practical purposes was built from the ground up as African American,
Okay.
and we could look across the expressway and see the young white folks.
Okay.
To put it like that, to be blunt.
Okay.
Now, case in point, Rosen started changing dramatically around 68, 69. How did it change, Mecca? And I'm going to weave in a couple of concepts. Realtors had a field day in Roseland. Now, again, neighborhoods change ethnically all the time.
Right.
Nothing wrong with that. But whenever you see a mass exodus, no one benefits but the realtors.
Right.
And what happened to Rosen, you had the concept of steering. What is steering? As a realtor is not obligated to show you everything that he has in his inventory, but he is obligated to a certain extent based upon what you can afford and the neighborhood that you desire to live in and the characteristics of the home that you wish to buy.
Right.
He can take you to certain areas. However, the realtor Mecca cannot be saying, because you're Mexican, I'm only going to show you the west side of town. The realtor cannot say, because you're African American, I'm only going to show you the west side of town.
Right.
That's steering when you purposely only showing people a limited geographical area, i.e. a neighborhood.
Right.
That is steering.
So now with the advent of the internet, if I am hired a realtor to assist me in my home search, and I find something on the internet I like, and I tell my realtor, hey, I want to see this, they have to show me that place,
Right.
regardless of where
Right.
it is.
Exactly.
Okay.
With a certain caveat.
Okay.
If you can't afford it, and they know you can't afford it, no one's in the business of window shopping.
Okay.
They can't limit it to what they know what you can afford, to
Gotcha.
a certain extent.
Okay.
Now, let's keep moving.
Okay.
Blockbusting. What blockbusting is, and Rosen is a textbook example, what
Okay.
blockbusting is that you get a minority, and back in the day it was African American. If you get one African American to buy on a particular block, you know what they would do, Mecca, back in the day? The realtors were very bold. They would either go knocking on the door or calling people up and saying, well, you know what has happened? An African American, they may use another word, but we're going to be kind today. We're just going to go with African American.
Right.
All right? A person of color has moved on your block. You know what that means? You better move while you can. So
Because the property values are going down.
Allegedly.
Now, but that was what they the perception that they would give the owner, the homeowner at that time,
Right.
that he would lose value in his home if he remained while the minority is moving in.
Absolutely.
Gotcha.
And that's a trick of the devil, because no one benefits but the realtor. What the realtors did, Rosen, they made a fortune. They got a couple of African Americans to buy. They told the people on the block and the neighborhood, you got to get out what you can. Rosen is an example of a neighborhood being manipulated. And when you manipulate a neighborhood, it deteriorates. Okay, I'm not picking on Rosen, but they're a
Right.
textbook example.
Because all of that, if a large group of people start to sell, that forces, it's not so much the moving in of one ethnic group, it's really just the large movement of people selling their house that will reduce the property value.
To a certain extent.
Okay.
Now, case in point, in Roseland, depending upon the time that you bought as an African American, you could have overpaid for that property.
Wow.
Roseland, okay, staying on Roseland,
Right.
depending upon the time that you bought, if you bought at the end of the mass exodus, we just have to be frank, white people were trying to get out there by any means necessary. You could have gotten a bargain.
Gotcha.
Again, you
so
have
they were underpricing
exactly, and which led to a lot of deterioration of Roseland. Roseland, in my opinion, started changing, at least when I noticed it, 68, 69, 70, By 71, the transformation was complete.
Wow.
And the reason I know that, I went to Finger, my mother went to Finger, she's probably one of the first blacks to go to Finger, but I went to Finger in 1971 to 75. When I got to Finger, it was roughly 60% African American, 40% white.
Okay.
By the time I graduated Mecca, it was like 99.9 black.
Right.
So what are we saying in these couple of minutes? That is an example of exploitation, manipulation, and no one being able, the person being taken advantage of it is the realtor, because you're leading to a destabilization of the neighborhood.
Okay. All right. Well, let's get on. We don't have a lot of time. So, what is some other concepts
Sure.
like? You said steering. You said blockbusting. What about the reasonable modification?
Right. I'm going to try to hit it quick in these couple of minutes. What a reasonable modification is, ladies and gentlemen, is someone as a tenant makes a request for something very simple like a grab bar. It's not something that's not very expensive. A grab bar is used by someone to pull themselves out of the tub. A lot of times when people get up in age or disabled, they need something to pull them up. That's what's called a reasonable modification. The landlord, or as we call the house provider, you don't have to always give the reasonable modification, but you can certainly consider it. And the law says it's something that is not very costly, that does not significantly alter the characteristics of your property, then you should consider doing it. That's a reasonable modification. Physical. A reasonable accommodation, ladies and gentlemen, is a change in policy. Say you have in your lease no dogs or no pets, which is perfectly understandable. However, what do you do with a person that's legally blind and has a CNI dog? Ladies and gentlemen, a CNI dog is not a pet.
Right.
A CNI dog is what's called a support animal or service animal. That could give rise to you, because of the circumstances, that you should deviate from your set rules. Not saying your set rules are wrong or anything like that, but it's a situation where you should give consideration to allow that person, not everybody, to have a dog, but an individual that has a special need, is disabled, such as being legally blind, needing a CNI dog to be able to function.
Now, what about these laws pertaining to the medical marijuana?
That's a tricky one, and ladies and gentlemen, I'm gonna stay away from that for a little bit because the law is evolving.
Okay.
Because that is a new something that we are dealing with. We know that to a certain extent you can use marijuana for medicinal purposes. Did I say that right? But the law is still, because it's so new, it's evolving as to whether or not a landlord, or we call it business, a house provider, has to allow for the use of marijuana. So stay tuned for that.
Okay. And this is the type of thing that we are here. That's the reason why we are here, to provide you with the information as the laws changing, as our culture changes. There are new nuances to the laws that are in existence. So continuing on, what about the Women Against Violence Act?
Critical, thank you. The Women Against Violence Act is this. If a woman is in reasonable fear of her life, we all know you just can't change the locks. That's illegal. If the tenant changes your locks, the landlord, you can change them back. But in the Women Against Violence Protection Act, if the woman knows that somebody has keys to the property and she's in fear of her life, she can change the locks. Also, more important, ladies and gentlemen, if a woman is in reasonable fear, we have a caller.
Oh, caller. Hello?
Hello?
Hello, yes, caller, we hear you.
Yeah, I have a question I'd like to ask you.
Sure.
This is the Bar Association?
Okay.
Okay. Okay, my question is, well, I inherited some money from my father, which is like $20,000. It was over 7 years ago. I was incarcerated at the time, and one of my brothers received my money or whatever. He cashed a check. I never seen a dime of it.
You need to contact the Cook County Bar Association.
Now, how could I go about getting it?
You can contact the Cook County Bar Association and ask for, is your parent deceased? Is that how you got this $20,000? Hello, caller.
Yes, I was inherited, yes.
Oh, yes. So ask for a probate or wills, trust, and estate state lawyer, okay? Contact the Cook County Bar Association. That's cookcountybar.org. Okay? Thank you.
Let me get this last point for ladies. Ladies, if you're in fear of your life, you can change the locks. Ladies, you're in fear of life, you can break the lease.
Oh,
Okay,
okay.
you can break the lease. It's very critical. If someone is after you, you can break the lease, and the landlord cannot sue you for breaking the lease.
Okay.
And that is one of the main protections of the Women Against Violence
Violence
Act.
Act.
Again, the bottom line is, as a woman, you have certain protections and able to, keep you out of harm's way.
Okay. Well, thank you, Attorney Lewis Powell, for this informative episode of our Cook County Bar Association's Live on CAN-TV. We've been provided with a wealth of information regarding fair housing, the law, its history, and its implication and application in today's society. Please tune in next week when we will have a show on the Rapid Response Committee of the Cook County Bar Association, and members of that committee will be here to talk about some legislative initiatives that they have taken on in the state of Illinois to assist the community of the Chicagoland community and the state citizens in protecting their rights here in Illinois. So please tune in to that show. Thank you, Attorney Lewis
Thank
Powell,
you.
for your participation in this show. And we ask all the viewers to tune in next week. Have a great evening.